Sato purchased a drink from a convenience store. At the checkout, the cashier asked for 20 yen. He paid the money, and as he was leaving, the cashier thanked him for the purchase. Sato thought everything was fine, and the day was as normal as usual. As he went to school, he realized it was the first time in his 17 years of life that he had received any message from a girl. Wasn't that a sign of love about to enter his life? Isumi commented that it could be a man, while Koga suggested it might be a scammer. Sato was shocked to hear their responses and asked how they could make such assumptions. Were they perhaps expecting women or something like that? Koga replied that even if it was a girl, she could be bad news, possibly a honey trap or something similar. Sato showed them the profile picture and said that she looked very cute. Isumi pointed out that the photo might not be real and questioned if it was normal for people to use random images from the internet. Koga asked Sato to let him check the messages, and after reading them, he concluded that they showed clear signs of a scammer. Sato felt extremely disappointed to hear that. Koga reminded Sato that they had known each other since middle school, and that's why he mentioned that such disbelief and naivety could also be seen as virtues. Sato replied, asking Koga not to casually call such things virtues. He earnestly felt that this was the way things were nowadays, and he would like to have a girlfriend or something similar and be able to experience love like normal people. Isumi chimed in, saying that the internet was so scary, and Sato should consider canceling his mobile data subscription. Koga added that Sato should cancel his home internet as well. Surprised, Sato asked if the internet had caused harm to any of their relatives or something. Isumi wondered how they knew so much about the situation, including details about the profile picture. Then Koga shared the rumors he had heard about boys at school who were seeking female interaction. They would receive messages from profiles of pretty girls, but in reality, it was an old man behind it all, scamming money from the boys. Sato asked if meeting people online was that dangerous. Then how could they meet girls? Koga replied that there were many websites, and they just needed to find someone who seemed decent. Isumi added that these websites often reveal a person's real identity. Just as Sato leaned back a bit, he noticed that his bag was caught on the pendant of a girl's bag. She apologized and offered it for free. He reassured her, saying it was fine. She insisted on paying for it and apologized again. Sato declined, mentioning that it was just an ornament, so she didn't need to worry about it. As he said goodbye, Sato moved over to his friends. Koga commented that it was a clever move and that it could have been a chance to meet someone. Sato didn't reply, and then Koga asked what was wrong. Sato replied that it was so nerve-wracking. Koga laughed and teased Sato, saying that he couldn't handle awkward situations. Isumi chimed in, mentioning that these things were common in boys-only school. The scene shifted to after school, where the three friends stood outside the school building. Sato began to talk about something that happened during class. Isumi immediately dismissed it as a scam, but Sato insisted they at least take a look. Koga remarked that something was happening at the entrance. As they approached, they all noticed a cute girl waiting there. They wondered who she was waiting for. One of them joked about wanting to change schools, while another called him a fool. As Isumi and the other two approached the girl, Sato recognized her as the girl from the day before. She explained that she had been looking for him and guessed he was from their school based on his attire, which had garnered more attention than she had expected. Sato remarked that being from a boys-only school tended to draw notice. The girl then apologized for the incident from the previous day. Sato reassured her that everything was fine and she didn't need to apologize. Just then, Sato noticed Isumi and Koga leaving. The girl mentioned that there was something else she wanted to discuss and asked if she could borrow a bit of his time. Since they were attracting too much attention in the open, she suggested they talk in a quieter corner. Sato agreed, and they moved to a secluded spot. Once there, the girl confessed that she was worried about startling him with her sudden approach, but wanted to be honest. As Sato took a good look at her, he thought she was very pretty and secretly wished he could date someone like her. She confessed that she had fallen in love with him at first sight. Sato blushed upon hearing this. She explained that after seeing him that she couldn't help but feel that her feelings were genuine. Sato mentioned that he didn't know her at all. She agreed, saying that she wasn't asking for an immediate answer and just wanted to get to know him better. If after getting to know each other, he still wasn't interested, she promised to respect that and move on. She started by expressing her desire to be friends, giving him her number and adding that he could discard it if he found it bothersome. Accepting the note, Sato thought that starting his youth with such a surprise might not be a bad idea. Perhaps he could finally get a girlfriend as he had always wanted and feel like a normal person. He thanked her sincerely for the gesture. Koga and Isumi observed the interaction between Sato and Arisa. Koga remarked that regardless of how they looked at it, it was a confession. Isumi added that based on Sato's expression, there was an 80% chance of that being true. Koga joked that he was relieved it didn't escalate into an awkward situation. Isumi explained that they always kept an eye out for their friends' romantic opportunities. Arisa introduced herself as a sophomore, and Sato reciprocated with his own introduction. He mentioned that they would eventually become friends, so there was no need for honorifics. Arisa agreed and mentioned that she needed to head home soon to catch the bus. She apologized for taking up his time and hoped he would contact her. Just then, a boy running past accidentally collided with Arisa from behind, causing her to lose her balance and fall onto Sato. He felt it was a rather unfortunate situation as he couldn't move. As they lay there on the road, Arisa quickly apologized and got up. Koga humorously commented that such a situation was often referred to as a lucky pervert moment. As they approached Arisa, she was surprised to see them. Isumi explained that they were just passing by, coincidentally witnessing the scene. Arisa mentioned that someone had pushed her, causing her to fall onto Sato, and she wondered what she should do. Isumi asked if she was hurt, to which Arisa replied that she was fine. Isumi reassured her that Sato was also fine, but Arisa still looked uneasy. Koga remarked that he didn't think Sato wanted to be seen after such a mishap. Arisa apologized for not realizing that earlier and decided it was time for her to go home. Sato seemed visibly shaken, and they decided to move him away from the scene. Koga encouraged Sato not to be afraid. Sato, feeling overwhelmed, expressed his shame at being embarrassed by a girl. They found a bench in the garden to sit down, where Sato apologized for troubling them. Koga reassured him, saying he didn't need to worry. Sato opened up about how he felt fine interacting with store clerks or unfamiliar women, always convincing himself that he was a normal boy like everyone else. However, the recent events made him realize he couldn't just go back to feeling normal. Overwhelmed by these emotions, he started to cry. Isumi reassured Sato that they didn't see him differently because of what happened. The next morning, Koga and Isumi sat together in school. Koga mentioned that such incidents hadn't happened to Sato since middle school, and it had been 3 years since they transferred to an all-boys high school. He thought it was normal for Sato to want a girlfriend now, especially considering how happy Sato always seemed when they talked about girls. However, Koga also wondered if Sato was perhaps forcing himself into this desire, which made him question if they had done something wrong. Isumi responded by saying that they hadn't done anything wrong up until then. They had only tried to protect Sato, especially after what happened with that teacher. Sato came to school thinking he would be a normal guy and act as he always did. He opened the classroom door and remarked about how he didn't receive any scam messages that day, questioning whether that was a good or bad thing. Koga noted that Sato seemed cheerful that day. Isumi then asked if Sato had called Arisa the previous day. Sato replied that he hadn't called her, but had saved her number. Koga teased Sato, calling him cruel for not telling her they could start as friends, which might make her think he rejected her. Sato explained that he had acted strangely the previous day, so he was certain she wasn't interested in anything with him, and he couldn't even bid her farewell properly, feeling certain she now hated him. Koga disagreed, saying he didn't think that was the case. Isumi commented that it would have been better if Sato had sent Arisa a message if he was concerned about that. Koga advised Sato not to overthink things and suggested that a simple thank you for the previous day would have sufficed. Sato reflected and thought about how he wanted to get to know Arisa better so they could truly become friends, experience a normal romance, and prove that he could also lead a normal life. After spending 3 hours contemplating his response, he returned home with a rather mundane and businesslike message to send to a member of the opposite gender for the first time in his life. He realized that she had replied in a friendly manner and was genuinely kind. Koga asked Sato about the sigh and inquired if it was about Arisa and if Sato was still in contact with her. Sato explained that they had been in touch for about a week. Isumi noticed that Sato didn't seem excited, expecting him to be much more enthusiastic. Sato replied that he had been about 5 times happier until the previous day. He then showed them the text from Arisa, asking to meet and talk. Isumi remarked on her assertiveness, noting that she was already asking him out. Koga pointed out that the tone of the conversation seemed normal, so he doubted it was a date. Sito asked if it was all right for him to meet her. Koga suggested they accompany him, but Sito declined, questioning if there were guys who would bring along their guardians to meet a girl. Koga said that if something similar happened again, they could consider it. Eventually, the three of them approached the school nurse, Mia, and shared everything, seeking her advice. Aisumi mentioned that Mia knew about Sito's past. Mia confirmed that she had been informed during the interview with Sito's family. Koga added that Sito had recently encountered a girl, resulting in a relapse. Mia expressed sympathy, acknowledging how difficult that must have been. Sito explained that he was currently feeling okay because Aisumi and Koga had helped calm him down. He mentioned that it was his first relapse since starting high school, which had caught him off guard. Amidst all that, the girl had asked him out on a date, to which Mia offered congratulations. Sito pondered what he should do if a similar situation arose again, expressing his determination not to run away and to do his best. He sought Mia's opinion on whether it was good to meet her again. Koga and Aisumi indicated they weren't opposed to it, although they were concerned. Aisumi asked if there were any precautions they could take. Mia inquired if they harbored any fears when interacting with others. Sito denied this fear, but Mia probed further, asking if he was afraid of girls. Sito replied that he wanted a girlfriend. Mia remarked that it was a quick response, and she noted that Sito seemed to have no issues with everyday life in an all-boys school, and didn't appear to have gymophobia either. That means it was a panic attack triggered by conditions that stimulate trauma. If it's someone he could trust, he could explain his circumstances to them, and once there's understanding, his safety would be secured. However, the chance of him getting hurt was also high. Mia then advised Sito to avoid abrupt contact first and foremost. She emphasized that they couldn't ignore the recent panic attack and advised Sito to pay close attention. Mia didn't think it was necessary to lie and say he's a clean freak. Instead, she suggested explaining that he wasn't comfortable with such close contact, and that some girls can be overly clingy. Sito wondered if Mia was also afraid of girls. He asked if telling the other party that he didn't want to be touched would make him excessively self-conscious. Mia responded that he wasn't a girl, and a guy should be okay with being touched by others. She found the logic there strange, and noted that it would amount to gender discrimination against oneself and others. When it comes to protecting one's body, there's no distinction between men and women. Then Sito agreed with Mia, expressing his gratitude as he got up, feeling more relaxed. He mentioned that he planned to reply to Arisa now that he was in a better state of mind. Koga joked that it would take another 3 hours. Hisumi thanked Mia for listening, and Mia welcomed him warmly. Sito noted that they were approaching the end of lunch break, urging them to hurry as they left. Before parting ways, Mia encouraged Sito for wanting to do his best and expressed hope for his improvement. She reminded him to strive for normalcy. The next day, Sito decided to meet Arisa. As he waited for her, he pondered whether it was appropriate to date her when he wasn't certain about her feelings for him yet. He resolved to follow Mia's advice about becoming comfortable with close contact. When Arisa arrived with 2 drinks, she remarked that Sito had arrived early. He agreed, explaining that his homeroom had ended sooner. Arisa then presented him with a choice between café au lait and milk tea. Sito thanked her, feeling surprised that this interaction happened sooner than he anticipated. He contemplated touching her hand, wondering if she would be okay with it, recalling that he had been fine with touching things while shopping. Arisa asked him to pick a drink. Arisa apologized, explaining that the colors of the drinks were the same, making it hard to distinguish between them. She decided to check the side of the drink to see if it was labeled. In doing so, she accidentally knocked over the other drink, prompting Sito to quickly reach out and grab her hand to prevent it from falling. They both blushed at the sudden contact, and Arisa remarked that it was a nice save. Sito then chose the drink that was saved and asked about the price. Arisa insisted that it was fine and suggested he think of it as her treat, since she had invited him out unexpectedly. Sito thanked her and couldn't help but think she was cute. He touched her hand reflexively, but didn't dwell on whether he was overthinking it. They then proceeded to the bookstore, followed by the play area, and finally ended up at a restaurant. While eating, Arisa complimented Sito's skills, to which he replied that he often visited arcades with his friends. Arisa then expressed her concern, wondering if she came across as weird or difficult to get along with. Sito asked her to clarify what she meant. She replied that throughout her time at an all-girls high school, she hadn't had a single male friend, let alone a boyfriend. Her heart had been racing all day, so she was relieved that Sito was someone she could talk to easily. Sito reciprocated, admitting that he didn't have much experience interacting with girls and could only last 2 seconds when looking into their eyes. Arisa was pleased to hear this and remarked that they were more alike than she had initially thought. Sito then asked why she thought he would be a good match for her. She recounted the time their bags got caught together, seeing it as a sign of fate and admiring how stylishly he dealt with the problem, likening him to a prince in her eyes. Sito wondered if he really seemed like a stylish prince. Arisa quickly apologized, asking him not to be disgusted, to which Sito reassured her that he was fine and found her romantic gestures endearing. He couldn't help but think she was quite the romantic girl herself. Arisa complimented Sito, praising his kindness, cooking skills, and liveliness, saying he was like the man of her dreams. Sito inwardly acknowledged that this wasn't exactly how he felt about himself. Nevertheless, Arisa expressed her desire to keep getting to know him better, to which Sito agreed, feeling intrigued by the Arisa was so glad that they could talk about a lot of different things right from the start. She admitted that she wasn't used to talking to guys, and it was embarrassing for her. She realized that if she tried to show off at that time, she would be the one suffering later on. Just then, some of Arisa's friends arrived and teased her about being with her boyfriend, assuming that's why she had left the classroom in a hurry that day, thinking she had a date with him. Arisa clarified that they were still just friends. Her friends playfully questioned what just friends meant and smiled mischievously at Arisa. Sito felt uneasy with the sudden presence of so many girls. One of Arisa's friends apologized for interrupting and upon looking at Sito, recognized him. Arisa asked the girl if she already knew Sito. The friend explained that they had attended the same middle school and wondered how Sito was doing, noting that it seemed like he had applied to an all-boys school, and that must have been a huge relief for him. She then asked Sito if he still remembered her. Sito wonders about a classmate from his middle school and the year they were in, as her face looks familiar, but he can't recall her name. He remembers that after he was treated poorly by a girl, he didn't attend that school for a whole year. He then apologizes to Arisa and says that he is leaving. Just as he leaves, Arisa asks her friend to pay the bill, promising to reimburse them later. They agree and ask her to go after Sito. The girl wonders what happened to Sito and if the rumors were true. Arisa catches up with Sito, asking if he's feeling unwell. When she touches him, being abrupt, he tells her not to touch him. Upon realizing that it was Arisa, he apologizes and rushes away, thinking that he has messed everything up. At school, Koga asks if Sito's emotions are like riding a roller coaster. Isumi asks who would have thought that Sito would meet his middle school classmate there. Sito explains that he only remembers her face, not her name. Koga remarks that it seems Arisa had special connections. Sito mentions that everything was fine until then, and that he was sure it would be even more enjoyable if they actually dated. Koga reassures Sito not to worry, saying that it was just an unfortunate incident, and that his uncertain feelings towards Arisa might be balancing out. Isumi adds that there's a chance the classmate Sito met might have told Arisa about his past, and probably no one else knows exactly what happened to him, although there were light rumors when Sito didn't show up to school. Koga emphasizes that Sito didn't do anything wrong. Isumi agrees, telling Sito that he won't know how others interpreted the news through gossip, and there's a good chance they added humor or exaggerated the story. Sito contemplates how Arisa might have reacted to the news negatively. He admits that he's scared to find out. Later, at home, he receives a message from Arisa asking if she upset him. Sito wonders if she'll think he's strange for leaving abruptly without contacting her afterward, especially since she doesn't know anything. He apologizes to her and asks if she heard anything about him from her friend. She replied that she only knew they were from the same middle school, then asked if something happened between Aya and Sito in the past. Sito denied it and apologized for leaving abruptly and being rude to her friends by not even greeting them. Just as Arisa called him, he was taken aback. He accepted the call, and Arisa explained that she was so worried she couldn't hold back and had to call, asking if he was free at that moment. He replied that he was in his room. Arisa mentioned they had recently met, so she didn't expect him to divulge everything, but she appreciated his apologies, advising him to take it easy and not feel the need to be so considerate all the time. She asked if he didn't have fun hanging out together, to which he replied that he did indeed have fun. Arisa suggested they hang out again sometime, and Sito agreed. Arisa mentioned she was heading home, so she ended the call, thanking him for picking up. He thanked her as well and then hung up, feeling relieved and lying down, unable to think clearly. Arisa pondered that something was definitely amiss back then, deciding not to be too overwhelming and to approach him cheerfully, as those weren't wrong things to do but rather frightening. She admitted she didn't quite understand guys. Sito wondered if that was love. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Sito is seated, contemplating what he could do to find the answer. Even if he were to ask himself the question, he wonders how he should tell her. Would it be weird if he just sprung that on her suddenly? He overhears Mitsuki telling Saka that he should confess to the girl. It's been a while since he was last confessed to, and he really should tell her that he wants to date her again. Saka replies that he doesn't really have those feelings. Mitsuki asks why not, stating that it's a waste to turn her down. Sito thinks that he's in the same situation as well. Then, Sito makes eye contact with Mitsuki, prompting Mitsuki to ask if Sito feels the same. Saka tells Mitsuki not to drag Sito into it. Sito admits that he doesn't actually know much about love. Mitsuki remarks that Sito is a late bloomer as well, and encourages him not to hesitate to come to him if he has any love problems, as Mitsuki is known as the love master. Saka comments that Mitsuki is a playboy. Sito proposed an example. What if they were confessed to, but the person didn't intend to start dating right away, suggesting to start off as friends instead. After some time, feelings develop. Mitsuki commented that it was oddly specific. Saka asked about the significance of the example. Mitsuki explained that in the example, the girl initially approached Sito, but now both of them have mutual feelings for each other. Sito speculated that Mitsuki had encountered a similar situation. Mitsuki replied that there was only one answer. He had to thank her for waiting and express his own feelings, suggesting, "Let's date." The scene then shifts to Arisa and her friend. The friend asked Arisa if Sito was a good guy, knowing that she had feelings for him, but he still seemed indecisive. Arisa replied that she had already spoken to Sito, so it was fine if they started off as friends first. The friend remarked that Arisa probably wanted Sito to hurry up and let her know if it was a yes or no. Arisa responded that if it was a no, it would be difficult for Sito to tell her. The friend reassured Arisa that she wouldn't know for sure and questioned if she was just a convenient option to Sito. Arisa insisted that she didn't think Sito was that kind of person and shared that she suggested they hang out again, to which he agreed. The girl expressed concern that Sito was merely passively reacting to what Arisa told him, questioning what his intentions were and if he had plans for their next date. She warned Arisa about the possibility of guys taking advantage of her kindness and overlooking the true nature of their relationship. Arisa agreed to confront Sito if he didn't say anything when they met again. Just then, Arisa received a message from Sito asking if she was free that day because he had something to talk about. The girl remarked that Sito had initiated the conversation. Arisa acknowledged that there was a chance Sito might reject her, but the girl advised her not to be so negative. After school, they met up. Sito admitted that it was sudden but thanked her for coming. She replied that she was glad he did and assured him he could ask her out anytime. She wondered if this was why she was being labeled a convenient woman. Then she asked Sito what he wanted to talk about. He glanced around to ensure no one was nearby and confessed that he felt happy when she came to meet him after school and that he had fun hanging out with her. He continued, expressing gratitude for her kindness in calling him, which genuinely made him happy. He wanted to thank her again for all she had done for him. Arisa wondered if the next thing he would say was an apology. Sito thought that Arisa had done her best to try to make things work, and he couldn't express it as casually as he wished, but now it was his turn. He realized that if he tried to act too cool at that moment, he would be the one to suffer later on. He stated that he didn't want to hide anything from her, so there was something he needed to tell her. He then revealed that during his time in middle school, he had been mistreated by a woman. Sito continued, expressing how uncomfortable he felt when suddenly touched without warning, which is why he apologized for pushing her away so forcefully back then. Arisa reassured him, reminiscing about that incident and telling him it was fine. Sito realized he had been too afraid of her reaction to see her face, but he made the decision to tell her clearly. He explained that if she was still okay with him, they should go out together. Blushing, she expressed her happiness and gratitude for him sharing his past. She then revealed that she had also experienced mistreatment during train rides, so she understood his feelings describing it as the worst thing. She wondered if such things happened to boys as well, but reassured him that he didn't need to worry anymore. Arisa then confessed that she still loved him and was excited to get to know him better. She acknowledged that it might feel like they were going through a process, but asked if she could call him by his name. He agreed and reciprocated by calling her by her name too. Sito reflected that some people, due to their past experiences, became unable to ride trains anymore, emphasizing that such experiences shouldn't be taken lightly or disregarded, as they cause significant harm. He shared all these conversations with his friends at school, announcing that he was now dating Arisa. Koga congratulated him, applauding, and Isumi joined in with congratulations as well. Sito expressed his gratitude and acknowledged that he had made them both worry a lot about him. But now he felt he could enjoy a normal youth, although he promised not to get ahead of himself. Before Koga could say anything further, the teacher interrupted, informing Sito that it was his duty day and he needed to distribute papers, then clean the board. Sito apologized and assured the teacher he was on it. Koga asked Isumi what he thought about Sito's reaction. Isumi observed that Sito didn't seem too thrilled about the teacher's interruption, a sentiment Koga agreed with. Isumi remarked that the teacher's method might be a bit drastic, but hoped it would turn out fine. Sito felt a bit off because it was his first time having a girlfriend. He pondered that it should be a normal experience for a guy from an all-boys school, especially with a good girl like Arisa who accepted his past. Despite feeling anxious because things were going well, he reassured himself that it was okay to simply get used to it slowly. Arisa's friend congratulated her on getting a boyfriend and eagerly asked if they had kissed, hugged, or interlocked fingers yet. Arisa admitted they hadn't done anything like that, which seemed to excite her friend Momo. Momo mentioned hearing about those things from guys and reading about them in manga. Arisa teased Momo for reading manga, but admitted she might be onto something. Momo noted that even though Arisa and Sito were from different schools, their relationship seemed to be working out. She suggested they might have secret conversations through the night that only they would know about until morning. Arisa entertained the idea of having a secret with Sito. Momo asked if they had already done that, and Arisa revealed that they had a secret conversation where Sito confirmed something awful that happened to him in the past. She interpreted this as Sito already considering her someone quite special. Koga mentioned that Sito and Arisa were planning to meet the next day for their first date, since officially becoming a couple. He inquired about their plans, prompting Sito to suggest watching a movie. Sito then wondered if he should organize a more elaborate date, such as arranging a limousine and dining at a seaside restaurant. Koga reassured him that a movie would suffice, alleviating Sito's concerns. Isumi chimed in, suggesting that limousines and seaside restaurants might be a bit too much for at this stage. Sito changed the subject by asking if everyone had completed their homework. Isumi admitted forgetting about it and requested Koga's notes. Koga remarked on Isumi's audacity in making such a request without any hesitation. Just then, Sito overheard some boys discussing gravure idols and wondered which ones they found attractive, particularly the short-haired girls. Sito felt uncomfortable with such conversations. Then Saha approached Sito and mentioned that he had heard about Sito getting a girlfriend, offering his congratulations. Sito asked how Saha knew about it, to which Saha replied that he had overheard Sito talking about it last week. Mitsuki joined the conversation, expressing joy at the news, and inquired if the girl was cute. Sito blushed and affirmed that she was indeed cute. Mitsuki remarked that he felt somewhat jealous and asked if they had already done things. Saha quickly interjected, advising Mitsuki not to ask such intimate questions to a newly formed couple. Mitsuki retorted that since the girl was already Sito's girlfriend, if Mitsuki were in Sito's place, they would have already done it the next day, considering it normal. Saha promptly apologized to Sito for the intrusive questioning. Sito asked if such behavior was truly normal, to which Saha reassured him not to worry and assured him that what he was doing was not commonplace. The following day, Sito prepared himself, contemplating that while he had met with Arisa a few times after school, the idea of meeting on an off day made him feel somewhat nervous. Others advised him not to dwell on it too much, explaining that once they started dating, such activities were typically considered normal. Sito pondered how the girls might feel about it. He wondered if he had truly managed to connect with her that day, feeling there was still so much he didn't know about her, and starting to fear whether he could truly enjoy himself that day. While walking, Arisa called, mentioning that it was still 10 minutes before the appointed time. He greeted her warmly, noticing her casual attire and thinking she looked incredibly cute. She asked if she looked strange, to which he quickly reassured her that she looked adorable, and he was just pleasantly surprised. Being shy, she thanked him, making him feel shy as well. She then suggested they head to the movie. He agreed, asking which movie they were showing at that time. Sito wondered why he had even doubted whether he would enjoy himself that day. He realized he didn't need to worry about anything, as it was a date, and it would be rude to her if he didn't enjoy himself. Observing other couples holding hands, Sito contemplated whether to try holding her hand as well. Despite feeling a bit nervous, he decided to go for it, and to his relief, nothing adverse happened when he did. In fact, he realized he wanted to touch her, and finally, he mustered the courage to grab her hand. She felt shy when he held her hand. Sito quickly removed his hand, apologizing, to which she replied that it was fine. They continued walking, and Sito wondered about the interaction. Arisa thought that even though Sito apologized, he was still trying his best to make her happy. Sito pondered why he had let go. He realized he had held her hand for a while and didn't need to be scared. He understood that she was kind and wouldn't be cruel to him, so he didn't need to fear her. Arriving at the movie theater, Sito contemplated whether to choose an action movie, but considering they were on a date, he thought a romance movie would be a better choice. Arisa was thinking the same thing. Sito asked for her preference, and she told him to choose any movie. Sito proposed a game. They would count to 3 and both point to the movie they were interested in. As they counted, they both ended up pointing to the action movie, laughing together as they headed to watch it. Afterward, they had a lot of fun. After all that, they parted ways, and Arisa apologized for having a worried expression, explaining that she had to take a train from a different platform. Sito reassured her that it was fine, so she didn't need to worry. He remarked that there weren't many people on that platform. Arisa explained that her curfew was early, so it was still early evening, and it would feel lonely to head back alone. She admitted that sometimes she fantasized about how nice it would be if they attended the same school, with boys allowed as well. She imagined meeting him when he enrolled there, seeing each other daily. However, she realized that if that were the case, they might not have had such fateful meetings. Regardless of how they met, she believed she would still have a one-sided love for him and eventually muster up the courage to confess. She then apologized for rambling, but expressed concern that if they attended the same school, she would have many rivals, and he might find someone else. Sito denied this, stating that he wasn't popular and even in an environment with other girls. He was certain he would still fall in love with Arisa. She commented that it was very sweet of him to say so. She was delighted that she had tried to hold his hand that day. He confessed that he wasn't good with close contact and was trying to overcome his fears. Sito pondered that he wasn't exactly trying to do that, but he guessed it would seem like a different way. Arisa expressed her desire to help him, offering her support if he ever felt uncomfortable in any way. She suggested trying holding hands again. Sito agreed, and they joined hands once more. She asked how he was feeling, and he replied that he was fine, though his heart was beating faster. She was pleased to hear this and assured him that if they worked hard together, he wouldn't be afraid of anything anymore. Sito reflects on how he never knew that a girl's hand could be so small and soft. However, he feels a sense of unease due to his past and is taken aback. Arisa notices something wrong and asks him about it. Sito assures her that it's nothing and tries to calm himself down, reminding himself not to dwell on unnecessary thoughts. The metro station employee announces that the train at platform number 2 will be arriving shortly. Arisa informs Sito that the train has arrived and removes her hand, cautioning him to be careful on his way home and thanking him for the day. Sito agrees, boards the train, and watches as Arisa leaves. As he sits on the train, he begins to calm down. The scene shifts to Arisa's school the next day, where she excitedly tells Momo about how they managed to hold hands on their last day together. She notes that there weren't many changes in Sito's height, but holding his hand made her heartbeat accelerate. They overheard a conversation between 2 other girls, where one mentioned something that wasn't expected to happen that month, but she was anticipating it. The second girl asked if she knew when it happened. The first girl denied knowing the timing, explaining that it was because she stayed over at her boyfriend's place once a week, engaging in intimate activities frequently. The second girl advised her to be cautious and suggested she get checked. The first girl expressed hope that her parents wouldn't find out. Momo told Arisa that those girls were discussing some crazy stuff. Arisa was shocked to learn that such activities were happening once a week for that girl. Momo reassured Arisa, saying that such things happened between couples, and she was confident that Sito would treat her kindly. Arisa was puzzled by what Momo meant and insisted that Sito wasn't like that. He was refreshing, pure, and wonderful. The scene shifts to Arisa's house at night, where she was watching a movie featuring a loving couple who declared they didn't care about anything else as long as they were together. Feeling a pang of loneliness, she switched the channel to the news. A girl reminded Arisa that a new tuition teacher would be coming the next day. Arisa agreed and mentioned that she would come back home early. After heading inside her room, Arisa sat down and remembered something strange. She then took out a manga to read, feeling her heart start beating fast as she immersed herself in the story. As she read, she thought that romance should be sparkly and make her heart beat fast, hoping to experience those sensations again soon. She longed to hold hands once more, to explore different places together, and to spend more time getting to know him better. She envisioned the love she had always idolized becoming a reality. Sito and Arisa found themselves in a cafe, enjoying cakes and coffee and remarking on how delicious everything was. Arisa expressed her desire to visit the cafe again, to which Sito agreed, mentioning how fortunate they were to find an empty seat. Arisa added that she found the interior calming and praised the waitress for her beauty. Sito wondered if he should agree with her on that point. After finishing their treats, they exited the cafe, only to find it raining outside. Sito observed that almost everything on the menu was delightful and suggested they come back again sometime. However, Arisa realized she hadn't brought her umbrella, and Sito admitted he hadn't either. Despite the rain not being too heavy, they decided to find shelter under a roof elsewhere. Sito offered his jacket to cover Arisa's head, hoping it would provide some protection from the rain. She asked about him, and he assured her he was fine. Together, they ran from the cafe and eventually found refuge under a good roof in the park. As they rested under the shelter, Arisa thanked Sito for the jacket and asked if he was feeling cold or if he was fine. Sito replied that he wasn't feeling too cold. Arisa then took out a towel and asked if she could dry his hair with it. Sito agreed, and she informed him that she was going to touch him before gently beginning to dry his hair. Sito reflected on her considerate actions, remembering how she always seemed to be mindful of his comfort, and wondered if it was because she remembered what he had told her. He thought she was such a good girl. Suddenly, they found themselves in close proximity, and in that moment, they shared a kiss. After that, she mentioned that she had finished drying his hair. He thanked her for that. Then, they both blushed while looking at each other. The next day after school, Momo asked Arisa if she was also going to meet Sito. Arisa agreed and suggested meeting the next day. Just then, Aya approached Arisa and asked if she had gotten together with Sito. Arisa confirmed, and Aya remarked that, as Arisa had mentioned they were still friends before, it was good news. Arisa agreed, mentioning that Sito was her first boyfriend, so there were a lot of things she didn't know, but they had gotten to know a lot about each other, and now it felt like they were close enough to talk about anything. Anna was shocked to hear this, and asked if it wasn't a little too much to handle having him as her first man, and if it was fine. Arisa asked Anna to explain that. Anna asked if Sito hadn't told her anything about herself, then apologized and mentioned that Arisa felt like they two could talk about anything, so she thought that. Anna then told that Sito had been absent from school for a long time, and what she was about to tell Arisa was all hearsay. But it seemed like Sito had gotten caught up in some kind of trouble with a woman. She suggested that Arisa confirm that part with Sito, and if he really had a dangerous past. Anna thought Arisa should find someone else to be with. Then, she made a plan to meet Sito at the park. As they sat together, Sito wondered why she had chosen such a place, and now he was strangely conscious of that fact. She simply called him and mentioned that there was something she wanted to talk about with him. She apologized for bringing it up if it was something he didn't want to remember, but he mentioned that he had been a victim of a bad situation involving a woman in the past. Arisa was under the impression that he had experienced something like that, so she had said a lot of things without thinking them through, and she must have heard him when she mentioned it. He asked what she was saying. She continued by asking if he still remembered the girl who went to the same middle school as him. And Arisa had heard from that girl that there was a period of time when he was absent from school, and that means he suffered through the experience far worse than she could imagine, and she apologized for that. He replied that it was nothing she should apologize for. He mentioned that it happened because he didn't keep himself clean, and he should be apologizing to her. She wondered what happened there. He replied that it wasn't a pleasant story, but asked if she would listen to everything he had to say about his middle school experience. He then told her that when he was in middle school, a female teacher asked him if he had some time. Sito thought that the lady was the trainee teacher. She mentioned that Sito was on the studies committee, and she hoped that he would tell more about his class activities and how a morning test was organized before exams. Sito said that the next day, he would bring all his printouts that he had used until then. The teacher thanked him for his help and mentioned that he was her senior when it came to school activities, so she was counting on him. After that, they both kept walking together. Aisumi approached Sito and said that it was unfair that Sito kept hanging out with the teacher. Toga agreed with Aisumi as well. Aisumi said to the teacher that she was a pervert. Sito said that it wasn't like that. The teacher mentioned that Sito was just teaching her various things. Aisumi remarked that he could teach her as well, and Toga agreed to teach as well. The girls asked them to stop fooling around. Sito thought that the teacher was pretty and kind, and she was a popular teacher who got along with her students well despite being an adult. Without exception, Sito was also fond of her and admired her a lot. Once Sito was working, a man called and mentioned that he had asked for a check on the PE equipment inventory in the storage room, but it seemed he accidentally left out one of the sheets. He asked Sito if he could pass that on to him. Sito agreed, and as he went to the basketball group, he heard a woman crying. Following the sound, he found it was his teacher. He sat next to her, and then she told him that she messed up and got scolded that day as well. It seemed like she might not be suited to become a teacher. She apologized for showing such an ugly side of herself and feeling like she failed as an adult and as a teacher. He replied, telling her not to say such things. He insisted that she wasn't a failure and that her classes were easy to understand and everyone in class liked her. She asked if he was sure and if he would still continue to like her. He agreed and said that he was cheering for her. She cried again, expressing that she wore a suit and pretended to be an adult in front of everyone, but she was insecure about herself daily. She was generally shy and also afraid whenever the vice principal sighed. There were a lot of things to do, and she felt so overwhelmed. Sito looked around and then offered his handkerchief, asking her not to cry. She suddenly hugged him, thanking him and saying that he was so kind. He felt embarrassed by the gesture. She mentioned that she could hear his heartbeat so clearly. He replied that it was because she was so close to him. She then pushed him to lie down there, and sitting on him, she asked if he would make her feel comfortable and that he didn't have to do anything. She assured him that she would teach him everything he needed to know. She also emphasized that he had to keep their interaction a secret between the two of them. Sito asked what they were doing at such places. She told him that it would be good for him. Sito wondered what was happening to him. The teacher remarked that Sito was at the age when he had an interest in girls and asked if he wasn't lucky enough to have a head start on experiencing that. So, let's make him an adult before anyone else arrives. Aisumi and Koga wondered where Sito had gone. Koga mentioned that he thought Aisumi was with Sito. Another boy added that Sito had gone to the gym storage room earlier. Sito felt his body was uneven and that he had been treated unfairly, which made him afraid of a person for the first time. He felt no pressure from the adult's actions, but he struggled to resist at first. However, his fear overwhelmed him, rendering him unable to move. Halfway through, he found himself unable to do anything but endure it until the ordeal passed. At that moment, his teacher seemed more like a giant monster. Afterwards, he sank into depression and spent his days lying around. When he returned home, his parents were deeply concerned about him. Meanwhile, all the students wondered why he wasn't coming to school. One remarked that he heard Sito got into some trouble. Another mentioned that Sito was such a good guy and that he was one of those whom they didn't have to judge by appearances. Aisumi and Koga visited Sito's home to check on him. Sito reflected on how he had become afraid and felt paralyzed, unable to do anything. During this time when he avoided school and even going outside, Aisumi and Koga continued to visit him regularly. They didn't try to console or persuade him to return to school. Instead, they simply came as his friends. Fortunately, the school took appropriate action and properly punished the teacher responsible for Sito's distress. He stopped recounting the events to Arisa and mentioned that during the second half of his third year, he was able to return to school, choosing to attend the only boys' school available. Arisa was shocked to hear this and admitted that her mind went blank on how to react. Sito assured her that he didn't expect her to comfort him and that she didn't need to worry. However, he noticed her tears and acknowledged that he had indeed suffered a lot. Feeling emotional, Sito thanked her for listening to him. Arisa said that she shouldn't cry there and apologized for that. He replied that it was nothing, then asked if she had enough time. He remembered she mentioned having a new tuition teacher coming to her house on Thursday, so she should hurry to get back home. She agreed and mentioned that her thoughts were all about him that day. Before leaving, she assured him she would contact him again. Sito was sitting with Mia, Isumi, and Koga, who were shocked to know that Sito had told Arisa all about his past. Isumi remarked that Sito really had such courage. Koga asked about Arisa's reaction. Sito replied that Arisa told him she had suffered a lot. Koga commented that his impression of her was that she was a clueless young lady, but now he saw her as rather broad-minded. Isumi pointed out that Koga had only met her twice. Sito mentioned that he hadn't realized that and explained that since she had heard what he had to say, he thought he should come and tell Mia. Mia replied that it was so different and she was glad that it was working out for him. Sito mentioned that a lot of things were happening between them, so he apologized for not coming to Mia. Mia replied that there was no need to apologize and Sito didn't need to feel obligated to discuss or disclose everything to him. She emphasized that when students encounter any kind of trouble or need help, teachers hope to be adults whom students can easily approach and talk to. Sito expressed that he didn't want to hide anything from Arisa, and now he felt relieved. Koga appreciated that Sito did his best. Arisa wondered what had happened compared to the rumors she had heard. There was a bit of difference, and Sito seemed more like a victim of something strange. He confided in Arisa about his painful past, and her initial feeling was simply happiness. She realized that sharing their experiences made their bond stronger, which truly made her happy. However, she acknowledged that they weren't the same at all, and she was having insensitive thoughts. Sito's behavior seemed strange, but it wasn't about whether he had experience with women or not. Just then, Arisa noticed a couple sitting nearby, the boy placing his hand on the girl's shoulder. The scene shifts to Arisa's house, where she lies down and thinks about the teacher who had done such things to Sito, wondering what kind of person she was. Sito mentioned that the teacher was pretty and everyone admired her, indicating she would be a young lady. Arisa didn't want to think about it, but she couldn't hold back her feelings of sympathy for Sito, and she wondered if he liked that teacher as well. She wondered if they had kissed as well, and when such thoughts arose, did men not start? She had heard a lot of news about women as victims, and even though he might be a middle school student, he was male, and the teacher was female. Couldn't he have shouted, or she imagined what happened to Sito there, and how his body had experienced such things? On the other side, Mia was contemplating whether a teenager her age could accept someone who had such a past. Mia couldn't do anything but worry, realizing that there were times when a person doesn't fully know themselves either. Arisa went to the washroom because she was feeling nauseous. Arisa recalls that during her elementary school years, she gained such knowledge as well, but it was simply a lesson like the rest. She remembers walking with her mother and seeing a banner indicating that only 18+ people should go somewhere, prompting Arisa to inquire about it. Her mother replied that Arisa couldn't go there. Later, they returned home and watched a show where journalists were interviewing a lady about her first-time experience, implying she was in a room with her boyfriend. Arisa's mother turned off the TV, commenting that those shows were all vulgar and silly. Arisa noticed that when something like that came up, her mother seemed sad, but Arisa wondered why everyone else seemed to enjoy it. The next morning, Arisa woke up feeling like she hadn't gotten proper sleep. She came out of her room to greet her mother, who returned the greeting and asked why Arisa looked so pale and if she wasn't feeling well. Arisa replied that she was just thinking about something. She mused about how her parents had also done weird things like that and then headed to school, saying she didn't need any breakfast. As Arisa sat in her class, she thought about how even the girls in her class talked about such weird things, as did adult teachers, Aya and Momo. So Arisa wonders if they had done similar things, and if that was really considered normal, and whether she was the only one ignorant about it. She feels embarrassed to be thinking about such things. After school, she walks the streets thinking that Sito's past was too shocking for her, so she's certain it's just throwing her off, and she needs to pull herself together. Despite it being very hard for him, Sito told her about his past, and she doesn't want him to think of her as a difficult girl who makes him feel uncomfortable. Just then, Sito arrives, calling out to her and mentioning that it's a coincidence. He expresses happiness that she's heading back home. She feels shy upon seeing him and thinks that her heart skipped a beat. Everything seems unchanged, and Sito appears normal as usual, so she might simply be overthinking things a bit. Sito notices a boy about to bump into her and quickly moves her aside, telling her to be careful. As he touches her to guide her, she instinctively removes her hand from him and appears worried. He asks what's wrong with her, but she just starts running away, apologizing as tears well up in her eyes. She thinks that her body instinctively rejected his touch. As she crossed the overbridge, Sito came by and followed her, apologizing as he did. He expressed his concern, mentioning that he had noticed she seemed unusually pale. He offered to walk with her for at least half the way if she wasn't feeling well. Initially hesitant, she considered denying his offer, but Sito's insistence prompted her to reveal her inner turmoil. Tearfully, Arisa confessed that she felt unsettled after learning about his past and couldn't shake off thoughts about it, despite her efforts. She admitted feeling scared by her own thoughts, which were increasingly overwhelming her. She despised feeling this way, finding it painful. Looking at him, she asserted that it was her problem, not his. In response, Sito reassured her, acknowledging the discomfort such revelations could bring and apologizing for making it difficult for her to forget. She insisted it wasn't like that. Sito expressed his hope that she would have told him immediately if those were her thoughts, such as finding it difficult to handle or feeling disgusted, as it wasn't normal. In response, she clarified that those weren't the thoughts she was having. Sito wondered if her kind words weren't genuine. He apologized for inadvertently making her feel forced and repulsed. She assured him that she wasn't repulsed by him, but admitted to feeling conflicted. Initially, she was thrilled when he confided in her, believing her ideal guy had finally appeared and that the romance she had always admired was coming true. However, she felt uncertain about his feelings and actions, including when he smacked her hand away on their first school date. She tried to understand that romance in real life comes in different forms, but she never expected him to have such a past. Now, whenever she thinks of him, it pains her. He questioned whether what he had done was truly against his will, feeling the weight of being a guy and the perceived expectation that he should have been to resist. Frustrated, he shouted at her to stop talking about it all. Then, overcome with emotion once more, he began to cry again, expressing that she couldn't understand because she hadn't experienced it herself, urging her not to force him to articulate it. Sitting there, he reassured her that she wasn't to blame, emphasizing that her feelings were valid and normal. He admitted it was wrong of him to involve her in his messy situation, apologizing for subjecting her to discomfort and feeling disgusted for not being what he perceived as normal. Tearfully, Arisa left the scene. As Arisa left, Sito felt the urgency to compose himself quickly, fearing others might perceive him as weird if they saw him in such a state. However, he struggled to breathe and felt an overwhelming urge to scream. He pleaded silently for help from his friends and family. Eventually, only Isumi and Koga approached him, inquiring about what had happened. They found Sito in tears and helped him to his feet, guiding him back to his house. Once there, they sat down together and discussed the events that had unfolded. Sito admitted he hadn't expected things to escalate as they did, and both Isumi and Koga offered their support and well wishes, though it didn't alleviate Sito's distress entirely. Isumi reassured Sito that he didn't need to apologize excessively, as the situation wasn't entirely his fault. Koga pointed out that Arisa had hurt Sito first. Later that night, as Sito prepared to leave the house, his mother questioned his late-night outing. Sito explained he was just going to the convenience store. Walking the streets, Sito pondered how difficult it was to remain at home, not wanting his mother to worry about him. Feeling burdened by the troubles he had caused his friends and the repeated failures despite his efforts, Sito couldn't shake off the negativity creeping into his thoughts. He questioned whether he would continue living in such a manner, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of his emotions. Despite the relatively short duration of their relationship, the wounds inflicted weren't easily healed. As he walked, he found himself standing in front of the cafe where he and Arisa had spent time together. Memories flooded back, from their first encounter to the painful moments they shared. Overwhelmed, tears welled up in his eyes as he realized the depth of his love for her, yet understanding that love alone wasn't sufficient. Suddenly, a concerned lady approached him, inquiring if he was hurt or unwell, or perhaps a lost child. Sito replied that he was fine and apologized for disturbing her business, explaining that there was a lot happening. The lady asked if Sito had some time and expressed concern about him walking around while in such a situation, suggesting that he come inside for a cup of cafe latte or something. Sito found that the cafe was already closed. As they entered, the lady told him to take any seat he wanted since they were closed for the day, so no customers would come. Sito could take his time. Then the lady asked if he preferred cocoa or hot milk. He replied that a cafe latte was fine. He felt like she was treating him like her kid, reminiscent of the fun date he had with Arisa in the past. She then served his cafe. Sito thanked her and said he would pay for it, but the lady insisted it was fine. Sito thanked her again, and as he drank the cafe latte, he complimented her on how good it was. She replied that she was glad to hear it, then asked if he was a crybaby or if something painful had happened to him. He apologized again. She asked what he was apologizing for. He explained that it was because he caused a problem for her, and also because a guy shouldn't cry in front of people. The lady questioned whether gender mattered in this case, pointing out that both boys and girls, adults and children, all have moments where tears won't stop. Currently, she was the only one there, and no one else was going to scold him, so he didn't have to worry about anything. Sito thought of the calm and warm atmosphere, feeling as if the weight on his chest and the tears in his eyes slowly trickled away. He knew nothing about her name, age, or past, yet she had really grown as a woman. It felt similar to being with Mia, and he felt secure being with her. After the coffee, he thanked her and insisted that he should still pay for it. She told him that whenever he felt happy, just come to her as a customer, and that would be the greatest thanks to her. He agreed with her. The next day at school, Mitsuki asked Koga why Sito wasn't there and if he was sick or something. Koga replied that it was something like that. Mitsuki speculated that Sito was playing hooky to have a date with his new girlfriend. Saha asked what Mitsuki was saying, noting that Sito wasn't like that. The scene shifted to Arisa's school, where they were leaving the building after classes. They overheard some girls talking about two boys waiting outside and wondered if they could talk to them. As Arisa looked outside, she saw Koga and Isumi. Koga asked Arisa if they could have some of her time. Arisa understood that they were Sito's friends and asked if they needed help with something. Koga commented that Arisa had done the same thing in the past as well. He mentioned that she had heard all the things from Sito, and after that, she was repulsed and broke up with him, asking if he assumed that correctly. Arisa asked what repulsed meant, and Koga told her he didn't have to put it that way. Isumi said they weren't complaining, and it was hard for Arisa to accept the truth so easily. Koga stated that he came there to complain that Arisa was the one who approached Sito and hurt him, which he considered selfish. Isumi reminded Koga that he supported his decision at first as well. Koga replied that he would have been against it if he had known such things were going to happen. Isumi said it was all happening too fast, and they were just deciding things after the fact. Koga insisted that Sito was never at fault, and women kept coming on to him, and Arisa knew what she had done as well. Arisa felt sad to hear that. Koga continued, saying he couldn't stand by without doing anything, and while Sito got hurt, they couldn't change what had already happened. So, he was there to tell Arisa not to go near Sito anymore. Arisa admitted that she had been childish and acknowledged the problems she had. She had no intention of telling Sito what was on her mind, but she ended up saying a lot of unnecessary things, which she realized was terrible of her. However, she didn't hate him, nor did she reject him. Through tears, she expressed that what Sito told her was wrong, thinking he could date someone, and she apologized for getting dragged into that. She clarified that even if he hadn't brought it up, she already knew she couldn't approach him anymore after his clear rejection. Momo came to support Arisa, suggesting that if things had gone this far, Arisa should have her say as well. She pointed out that Arisa had been hurt many times as well, and although Sito was a kind person, it might be better for Arisa to stop seeing him altogether. She questioned whether experiencing such pain gave them the right to if they were going to say Arisa selfishly approached Sito. Momo would argue that Sito forced his trauma onto Arisa and hurt her. Momo believed it was wrong for third parties like them to interfere in Sito and Arisa's problem, so they should just leave. As they left, Isumi told Koga that Momo was right, but he still felt Koga had been overly aggressive that day. He expressed concern that Koga's anger might make it seem like he was holding a grudge against them. If Sito noticed, he might ask why Koga acted that way. Isumi noticed that Koga was crying and said he understood, adding that Isumi didn't have to say such things. He believed it wasn't something they should meddle in, but Isumi thought it would have been better if she hadn't intervened. She remarked that it seemed like Koga had 2 big babies on his hands. The scene shifted to Sito, lying on his bed, reflecting on taking a day off from school. He thought about the lady he had met the previous day, noting that she was a grown woman, yet he didn't feel afraid. He wondered if it was because she had a comfortable demeanor or if it was because she reminded him of Mia, which put him at ease. Remembering the lady's words, Sito became emotional, thinking about making a firm decision to forget everything and move forward, even though he knew he couldn't do it right away. However, he believed it would be okay in the end, and that he could take his time to face forward again. Once Sito returned to school, he planned to apologize to Isumi and Koga for worrying them. After that, he would head to the cafe and express his gratitude, maybe even starting something new. The scene shifted to the restaurant of the lady, where she posted a sticker indicating she needed staff and would pay 800 yen per hour, hoping to find someone to fill the position. The next morning, Sito was on his way to school when he caught sight of the cafe. It triggered memories of the conversation with the elegant lady, prompting him to decide that after school, he would treat Isumi and Koga there. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Isumi reminds Koga to apologize to Sito if he happens to come by. Koga assures him, while casually watching their favorite idol's music video, commenting on Isumi's elegance. Isumi clarifies that he wasn't particularly fond of the girl, rather, he watched it for knowledge. He emphasizes that Sito's reaction would dictate everything, expressing concern that Sito might be feeling down, and any misstep could worsen the situation. Just then, a cheerful Sito arrives and greets them. Isumi remarks on Sito's seemingly forced cheerfulness, prompting Sito to ask him not to make such observations. Sito admits that he might have been pushing himself a bit, but asserts that he has come to terms with it. Koga acknowledges this as progress. Sito then inquires if anything happened, prompting both Isumi and Koga to recount the events of the previous day, leaving Sito shocked. Koga apologized for his actions, expressing regret for what they had done. Sito replied that he was more taken aback by their actions, especially considering they had ventured into the girls-only school. Isumi interjected, stating that Koga's concern for Sito motivated his actions and urged Sito not to be upset with him. He also admitted his own culpability for not intervening. Sito turned to Koga, asking if he was reflecting on his actions, to which Koga agreed. Sito reassured them that he harbored no anger, acknowledging that while their actions had made things awkward with Arisa, it was an event that had already concluded and he believed it was unavoidable. He expressed gratitude towards both of them for their gesture. He noted that it was rare to see Koga emotional, to which Isumi commented that it unsettled him slightly. Sito then asked if they were both free after school, because there was a place he wanted to take them. After school, they arrived at the cafe, and Koga remarked on its pleasant ambience. The lady welcomed them and recognized Sito. She presented the menu and mentioned that their dessert of the day was cheesecake, so they decided to order that. Izumi expressed his opinion, though hesitant about her reaction, that he liked Kanon's current appearance, which resembled her old look. Hearing his opinion left Kanon confused, and innocently she questioned what Izumi meant by his words, because for Kanon, this was only their third meeting. Izumi paused for a moment, his eyes staring at Kanon, but filled with doubt. He then said it. He knew that Kanon used to be someone named Kurusu Kanon, who was an idol. Kanon herself fell silent and only let out a confused sound. The silence felt so awkward between them. But there was also a slight sense of nostalgia and happiness. Izumi pushed aside his doubts and explained again that he realized this the first time they met a few days earlier. However, he didn't tell her the truth directly because he didn't want Kanon to feel scared of him after realizing it, especially since he was neighbors with the idol he admired. With a guilty tone, Izumi apologized to Kanon for hiding this from her. Kanon remained silent, not responding immediately. It was as if she was still processing Izumi's words in her head. For Izumi, Kanon's silent reaction was perfectly reasonable. Even if Kanon ended up hating him after he explained everything, he would accept it as normal. Izumi felt that he wanted to be a fan of his idol, who approached her without hiding that fact. He admitted that meeting Kanon was a blessing for him, which is why he wanted to tell her about it. After a few moments of silence, Kanon showed no signs of hatred or other negative reactions. She smiled and asked with an admiring tone if what Izumi said was true. Of course, hearing that reaction surprised Izumi because it was different from what he expected. Even Kanon, with a happy and slightly proud tone, said that things like this sometimes happen after becoming an idol. While smiling broadly, she pointed to herself and said that it turned out she was more famous than she imagined, even to the point where Izumi recognized her despite her appearance having changed quite a bit. Hearing that made Izumi even more surprised. He paused for quite a while before responding that he was also quite surprised by Kanon's change in appearance, which now made her even more beautiful. But Kanon's smile had never changed, and her appearance had always been cute and pretty from the start. Hearing that, Kanon fell silent again and curiously asked if Izumi wasn't just recognizing her as a former fan of hers. Hearing the word fan come directly from the mouth of the idol he admired and directed at him made Izumi's cheeks blush. With a tone holding back embarrassment, Izumi replied that he wasn't a former fan, because even though Kanon had stopped being an idol, he was still her fan. Hearing that, Kanon was also surprised, her cheeks turning red, and with a shocked tone, she said that Izumi's confession just now made her heart beat fast from surprise. Since Izumi didn't want to hide anything else, he held back his embarrassment and explained again that besides that, he had also found the video Kanon uploaded. Hearing that, Kanon wasn't as shocked as before but more confused. She asked how Izumi could realize it was her even though she didn't show her face at all in the video. While slightly turning his face away, Izumi answered that he could immediately tell from Kanon's distinctive singing voice in his ears. Hearing that, Kanon actually laughed softly and smiled excitedly while saying that it turned out Izumi was a hardcore fan of hers. Izumi paused for a moment before asking with a doubtful tone if Kanon didn't feel disgusted or bothered after he said all that. Innocently, Kanon answered that she didn't feel anything like that. She then asked if that was all Izumi wanted to talk about with her earlier. Before Izumi could answer, Kanon walked closer to him, extended her hand, and gently stroked Izumi's head like an older sister. Even while smiling broadly, Kanon said that Izumi had kept all that for her sake and praised Izumi by calling him a good little brother. Hearing that, Izumi was immediately surprised and his face turned red again. With a shocked tone, he asked why Kanon was treating him like a child. With a joking tone, Kanon replied that what else could she do since she was older than Izumi. Izumi immediately replied with an unbelieving tone that their ages only differed by 1 year. Kanon smiled softly and said that she wasn't treating Izumi like a child, just appreciating what Izumi had done for her all this time. Izumi's cheeks turned red again after hearing and seeing Kanon's expression, a look he could no longer see on TV or the internet. Their atmosphere shifted from initial awkwardness to warmth, but the awkward feeling didn't completely disappear, which made Izumi quickly change the topic of conversation. Since there was nothing else he wanted to discuss with Kanon, he intended to say goodbye by giving the reason that he couldn't continue disturbing Kanon's private life like this. Hearing that, Kanon looked slightly startled and let out a surprised sound. Izumi explained again that he wanted to remain a good fan, so he had to know his boundaries. Kanon's previous soft smile began to fade and was replaced by a surprised and hopeful expression. She asked with a hopeful and confused tone if Izumi meant that the two of them wouldn't be able to meet again, right after they started getting close. Hearing that, Izumi innocently replied that they were neighbors, and he lived right next to Kanon's apartment, so they might still meet by chance. It was a normal and reasonable answer from Izumi, but not for Kanon. Her surprised expression now faded and was replaced by disappointment and fear. Suddenly, with a firm tone, she said that she didn't want that. She also expressed her opinion, or it seemed more like forcing her opinion, that according to her, something like this was perfectly fine, especially since she was no longer an idol. Even the videos she uploaded to the internet were things she did in her spare time, so now she was just an ordinary person. Her tone changed from expressing an opinion to clearly emphasizing it. She questioned what Izumi meant by knowing boundaries and what it meant to be a good fan. Her tone changed again to heavy disappointment. Her gaze was empty and dark, as if she had nothing left inside her. She then asked with a tone of heavy disappointment if what Izumi meant was that leaving her Ashi, or the idol he admired alone, was what a good fan should do. Seeing the drastic change and a gaze that felt very different from what Izumi felt before, he was startled, and with a surprised but calm tone, he replied that that wasn't what he meant. Izumi explained that no matter what, they had only met 3 times since they got to know each other, and because of that, he thought not getting involved in Kanon's life anymore wouldn't be a big deal for her. Hearing that, Kanon changed even more drastically, as if she was falling deeper into a dark abyss. With the same tone, She said that even though they had only met 3 times, Izumi had said that he always liked her, or perhaps those words were only from the past when she was still an idol. Kanon reflexively bowed her head and bit her own finger while asking again if Izumi hadn't said he still cared about her even after she stopped being an idol, or if all that was just a lie Izumi told her. Hearing that, Izumi was very startled and immediately denied Kanon's accusation. Hearing Izumi's denial, Kanon stepped closer to Izumi. Her hand grabbed the bottom of Izumi's shirt, and she looked at him with a gaze full of hope. Her expression changed again. With blushing cheeks and a hopeful and shy tone, she asked Izumi, "Say it clearly, does Izumi like her or not?" Seeing Kanon's cute expression that suddenly appeared made Izumi himself extremely surprised. His cheeks also turned red, and his heart beat fast. He paused for a few moments, gathering his courage before looking at Kanon while covering his mouth with the back of his hand because he was too embarrassed. With a soft tone, he answered that he liked Kanon. Kanon paused for a few moments, her mouth hanging open slightly before suddenly hugging Izumi tightly. Kanon then looked up while smiling happily and said that she liked Izumi too. Kanon laughed softly like a happy little sister. On the other hand, Izumi was silent with his blushing face as he saw Kanon's cute expression. Even Kanon didn't hesitate to show her spoiled side by hugging Izumi tightly. With a happy tone, she commented that she didn't want to say goodbye to Izumi in this condition. But since it was already late at night, Izumi had to go home or he'd get scolded by his parents. Hearing that, Izumi innocently replied that there was no one in his apartment, so something like that probably wouldn't happen. Hearing that, Kanon became very happy. She slowly released her hug and walked into her apartment, inviting Izumi to stay with her longer. She also invited Izumi to come inside because they had been chatting while standing all this time. She then extended her hand to invite him in while holding hands. Although Kanon invited him while smiling, Izumi looked quite surprised by what he saw, where there were many white scars on Kanon's arm skin, making the cut scars very clearly visible. It was an unexpected sight that was revealed accidentally. Innocently, Kanon extended her hand to hold hands with Izumi while inviting him to come inside, but upon seeing Izumi's expression, Kanon was a bit confused. However, when following the direction of Izumi's gaze, Kanon realized what made Izumi surprised. She pulled her arm back and smiled, with an awkward tone apologizing and asking if Izumi couldn't handle seeing something like this. Kanon didn't try to hide it, but she was worried about Izumi. Izumi answered with a calm but curious tone that he didn't mind it, but did the wounds hurt? Kanon smiled and replied that Izumi didn't need to worry because lately she hadn't been hurting herself often. Hearing Kanon's answer, Izumi felt even more anxious because Kanon mentioned lately, which indicated something was wrong with her previous lifestyle, even problems in her mental side. In the end, Izumi followed Kanon until they arrived at Kanon's room. Izumi sat on the bed with his heart pounding hard, his mind panicking because now he was in a girl's room. On the other hand, Kanon sat close beside Izumi. With a curious tone, she asked that she was curious because Izumi said he had liked her all this time, but why didn't Izumi intend to kiss her yesterday? For a moment, Izumi looked confused by what Kanon meant, but when remembering the incident at dinner yesterday, Izumi became awkward. His face turned a bit red, and with a slightly embarrassed tone, he asked if Kanon promised not to laugh at him after hearing the reason. Kanon nodded agreeably with a curious tone and promised. Izumi, with a bit of embarrassment and honesty, explained that he had never kissed before, which is why he reflexively refused because he felt nervous. Hearing that, Kanon was stunned for a moment before putting on a very surprised expression, even considering Izumi to be lying. Hearing himself accused of lying, Izumi firmly said that he wouldn't tell a lie. With an unbelieving tone and still a bit shocked, Kanon said that she thought that because Izumi looked handsome, so it was impossible for him not to have experienced it, but she remembered that Izumi went to an all-boys school. Hearing Kanon discuss his school made Izumi even more embarrassed and asked her not to bring it up again. Kanon then laughed softly. She approached and explained that, but because of that, she felt relieved because Izumi didn't intend to reject her existence. With her cute facial expression and blushing cheeks, Kanon invited him to do what they didn't do yesterday. Even proudly, Kanon allowed Izumi to feel awkward because she would teach Izumi as his older sister. In the end, Izumi experienced his first kiss with his idol, and it became a beautiful experience for him. The next morning, Izumi went to school as usual. He sat in his chair and played with his phone with his usual calm demeanor. Of course, Keed and Asahi were there too. However, Izumi didn't notice something, even making Kid, especially Asahi, surprised and envious. Asahi suddenly let out a surprised and admiring sound while staring at Izumi. Izumi, hearing that, innocently let out a confused sound while looking at his close friend. Hearing Izumi's innocence, Asahi immediately emphasized not to respond so innocently. He then informed about the red mark on Izumi's neck and guessed that it was a hickey. Realizing that, Izumi looked extremely surprised, his hand reflexively quickly covering his neck. His face immediately turned red, and he commented with a shocked tone that he had never noticed this. He then asked Asahi if the mark was very visible. Asahi nodded and answered that it was quite visible. Asahi also offered to cover it with a band-aid, even though it would look unnatural, but at least it was better than not covering it at all. Izumi thanked him for the suggestion and accepted the band-aid from Asahi. With a mischievous and slightly envious tone, Asahi asked, or more precisely interrogated his fellow friend when Izumi started learning adult things like this. Kid also asked, but not with a mischievous tone, more out of concern. He asked if Izumi already had a girlfriend, then why didn't he tell the two of them? In the end, Izumi explained and told that lately he had started getting close to a girl next to his apartment. Izumi told that when yesterday he was experiencing his first kiss, in the midst of that awkward atmosphere, there was an urge to go further. Although embarrassment and confusion dominated his thoughts, Izumi felt that he had to continue. However, before everything really happened, Izumi realized something crucial, where he realized he hadn't prepared anything for something like this. So reluctantly, and with a hard-to-hide feeling of disappointment, Izumi stopped it midway and chose to say goodbye, reasoning that he felt he had to go home soon. Hearing that story come directly from Izumi's mouth made his two friends only able to say one word: wow. Between admiration and pity, even Asahi commented with a pitying tone that things like that do happen often. On the other hand, hearing Asahi's comment, Kid just stayed silent and looked confused at him. Asahi then gave advice to his fellow friend not to be too affected by his failed first experience, because next time Izumi would definitely be more prepared. Feeling like he was being considered depressed because of that made Izumi a bit offended, and replied that he wasn't depressed. Asahi laughed and commented again that he didn't expect, and was quite surprised that Izumi had a girlfriend. He then congratulated Izumi for having his first girlfriend. The word girlfriend stuck in Izumi's head now. He kept thinking about it, and remembered that he and Kanon had expressed their feelings of like for each other yesterday. But Izumi felt something odd about the certainty of their relationship. Izumi then, with a puzzled and confused tone, asked his two friends if the way people start relationships had changed now. Simple expressions to affirm intentions, which used to feel normal, now seemed no longer necessary. Hearing that question, his two friends also let out confused sounds. On the other hand, in a nightclub, where the hustle and bustle of people with thick wallets and most of their intentions beyond reason, the glittering lights in the dark room attracted them one by one like moths unknowingly gathering around a light and never learning from the heat. In one of the rooms, there was a man in a suit with quite luxurious attire. While staring at his phone, he let out a long sigh as if facing a big problem. He then muttered to himself with an annoyed and tired tone that Kanon was once again in a phase of ignoring his messages. The sun set and the sky turned yellow. After school, Izumi went straight home to his apartment. Riding the elevator, Izumi still remembered his two friends' words. Izumi admitted that he didn't feel happy or upset with their words. He just couldn't show happiness over getting a girlfriend because he wasn't in that relationship due to its uncertainty. He also admitted that he still didn't know Kanon well. The elevator bell rang and the door opened. Izumi walked to his apartment door and rummaged through his bag to take out the key. Not long after, Kanon's apartment door opened and a man with an ordinary appearance wearing a mask came out from inside Kanon's apartment. Yes, he was the same man from the nightclub. Izumi reflexively turned and looked at the man. His eyes opened slightly upon seeing him. When their eyes met, the man greeted him politely, and Izumi did the same. The man then walked casually to the elevator door. Between surprise, shock, and confusion, Izumi stood there silent for a few moments. Even wild questions popped into his head, but Izumi tried to be logical. He felt doubtful about all the wild questions that appeared in his head, so he assumed that the man might be Kanon's brother. As he was about to insert the key into his door, suddenly Kanon's voice called the man's name as Yamato, as if not allowing Izumi to think calmly. The voice sounded rushed, and was accompanied by Kanon quickly coming out of her apartment. Kanon's appearance looked different from before. She wore neat makeup and made her look even more charming. Kanon, with a slightly rushed tone, told Yamato that he left his watch behind, but when her gaze met Izumi's, her tone changed to pausing for a moment. Awkwardly, Kanon came out and gave the watch to Yamato, who approached her. Yamato then went back to the elevator and told Kanon that he would contact her later. The elevator bell rang, and the door closed. Izumi stood there silent with cold sweat on his face, and so did Kanon, who stood there silent. The atmosphere there suddenly became very awkward. Even Izumi felt doubtful about asking, but after forcing himself, finally Izumi, with a curious tone and trying to stay calm, asked if that man was Kanon's boyfriend. Kanon immediately denied it in panic that Yamato wasn't her boyfriend and they weren't dating. Kanon, with a soft tone, explained that she and Yamato were just acquaintances. Hearing that, Izumi felt doubtful about Kanon because of her attitude of letting someone she only knew enter her own apartment. Kanon looked like she was trying to explain the situation by saying that Yamato was someone who had helped her a lot in the past. She then approached Izumi and begged him not to misunderstand her. For a moment, Izumi blushed a bit upon seeing Kanon's charming face approaching him. But suddenly, the sound of footsteps broke the silence between them. Turning behind him, a man with glasses and a suit appeared. The man stopped in front of Izumi's apartment door and opened it. Yes, he was Izumi's father. Izumi, who always avoided his father, was very surprised to see him home at this hour. Cold sweat came out from Izumi's face. He wondered in his head why his father was home now. On the other hand, Kanon looked quite surprised and asked Izumi if he was Izumi's father. Kanon then apologized to Izumi for making his father see them in an embarrassing situation. Izumi shook his head slowly, and with a tone that felt like he wanted to end the conversation quickly, replied that Kanon didn't need to worry about it. Without saying a farewell, Izumi immediately left and entered his apartment, leaving Kanon there in confusion and worry. But as soon as Izumi entered and closed the door, his father looked like he was about to leave again. Seeing that, Izumi was confused. He was about to ask and started with a confused sound. But before he could say a word, his father, with a calm but cold tone, explained that he came home early just to change clothes. He was also going on a business trip, so he wouldn't be home for a few days. His father paused after putting on his shoes, and then commented with the same tone that he didn't care who his son was playing with. But he reminded his son to maintain his etiquette and not act impolitely in public. Remembering seeing Izumi with Kanon earlier made him feel his son had done something impolite in public. He then let out a short but annoyed sigh. He commented again with a mocking tone this time, saying that he was curious who his son resembled. Even his son's type of woman described his son's own stupidity. Hearing that made Izumi furious. He, who all this time only answered without looking at his father and followed what his father wanted, as if the feelings he had held back all this time exploded inside him. His hand clenched tightly, as if still trying to hold back his emotions. He then asked his father what he knew about Kanon. He didn't want to hear his father say things like that after seeing her for the first time. Izumi then turned and looked directly at his father, his gaze sharp, not lecturing, but genuinely venting his emotions. With a calm but firm tone, he said that if his father was talking about types of women, then he resembled his father. Hearing that, his father turned his body and without hesitation immediately slapped Izumi quite hard. With a calm but cold tone, his father re-emphasized to Izumi that he forbade Izumi from using such etiquette towards him. He also mentioned the apartment he provided for himself, including Izumi. He also emphasized that Izumi could leave the apartment if he felt dissatisfied. After saying that, his father immediately left and went down using the elevator. On the other hand, Kanon was seen peeking from her apartment's front door. Making sure Izumi's father had really left, after the elevator closed and went down, Kanon immediately came out of her apartment and went to Izumi's apartment door. She knocked softly and asked about Izumi's condition with a worried tone because she also heard a bit of their argument. Not long after, the door opened and Izumi was seen standing there with his bruised cheek from his father's hard slap earlier. Seeing that made Kanon surprised and asked with a very worried tone if Izumi's father slapped him because of her. Izumi gritted his teeth and answered that it wasn't because of Kanon, just that his family had been weird from the start. Hearing that made Kanon a bit surprised. Izumi walked out and closed his door. Outside, Izumi explained that since he became mature enough to understand what was happening, that's when he realized he didn't have a family, something like a normal warm family. He He didn't have anything like that. Saying that made Izumi himself remember Asahi's words when they had just finished visiting Keed's house when they were still in junior high. After saying that, the two of them fell silent before Kanon suddenly commented that the two of them seemed the same. Hearing that comment surprised Izumi. He didn't expect Kanon, the idol he admired, to say something like that. Kanon explained with a soft tone and a slight smile, as if understanding Izumi's problem, that since their first meeting, she felt a strange feeling where she felt Izumi wasn't a stranger to her. Maybe because they were both in the same situation where they couldn't understand what family love was like, and maybe that's why she felt something similar to Izumi. Kanon extended both her hands and gently hugged Izumi's head, even though their heights differed. But for them, the difference wasn't important. For Kanon, this was the right time to heal the wound in Izumi's heart. On the other hand, Izumi himself was quite surprised by Kanon's action towards him. Daring to take such a step, Kanon's soft and warm body made Izumi feel calm, as if the barrier he had built all this time collapsed instantly. Kanon's hand gently stroked Izumi's head and whispered softly in his ear, "You must have felt lonely all this time, even now." A sentence without a definite meaning, but for Izumi or Kanon, that sentence was an acknowledgement. An acknowledgement that they existed and were real, someone who needed attention from their family. For Izumi himself, that sentence was like a lever that finally opened the dam holding back all his emotions. Izumi's hands slowly moved and began to hug Kanon's body tightly, as if that warmth was what he had needed all this time. The warmth given by Kanon made Izumi feel comfortable. That feeling turned into a deep love until they finally did it. After doing it, they got close comfortably. No sound, no movement, just calmness and warmth between them. After a few moments of silence, Kanon then intended to start a conversation by calling Izumi using honorifics as usual. But her words stopped upon seeing Izumi's expression that looked a bit bothered by Kanon's words. Izumi looked at her, his cheeks red, and said that it was enough to call him by the name Izumi without using honorifics, because Kanon called people she only knew without using honorifics. Hearing that, Kanon was surprised or even felt happy because Izumi felt jealous about that, and according to her, Izumi's action was cute. That made Kanon's heart beat fast, and she hugged him tightly. She then explained that Yamato was her mother's friend, and he sometimes came here to check on her condition. So Yamato had a relationship more or less like a distant relative. Izumi looked a bit relieved hearing that, and just nodded in understanding. Silence returned between them. Kanon stared at Izumi longer than usual. With a soft but curious tone, she asked Izumi what his mother was like. Izumi was a bit surprised hearing it, but he also felt happy when Kanon asked that. He paused for a few moments before answering with a slightly calm tone that sounded a bit annoyed, that his mother left him when he was still in 5th grade because she suffered from depression. Even when his mother left, his father said one sentence to him while kicking his mother out of the apartment that Izumi didn't need an embarrassing mother like her. Hearing that story, Kanon was quite surprised and commented with a pitying tone that those words were very cruel. Izumi continued his explanation by responding to Kanon's comment that even so, he hated both his parents. Both his mentally weak mother and his cold-hearted father. He was always alone when at home, but since entering junior high, he started learning about Kanon, who was still an idol. For him, Kanon at that time looked very cute. Kanon looked so dazzling every time. Izumi looked at the ceiling, and his tone changed to slowing down due to drowsiness, but still explained that that's why he felt he had finally found hope to keep living. Kanon's smile that felt shining and warm like the sun was the only thing that always supported him all this time. Izumi's tone became softer until he finally fell asleep right after saying that. For a moment, Kanon was quite surprised hearing Izumi's story. She wrapped her arms around Izumi's neck and hugged him gently. A small smile appeared on her face, but her expression didn't look like she was very happy, more like feeling pity, but also feeling a heavy burden that made her feel weighed down. The night passed and a new morning came. After getting ready for school, Izumi said goodbye to Kanon before leaving with his slightly blushing cheeks. Kanon smiled warmly and saw him off. She said farewell to Izumi, and yes, Izumi left Kanon's apartment. In the elevator, Izumi's face immediately turned red as he felt embarrassed himself, but he also felt very happy right now. Time passed and break time arrived. Izumi used the vending machine at school. There, he still clearly remembered Kanon's words yesterday, about their similar conditions. Izumi felt a bit guilty because he fell asleep after they did it. even though he wanted to hear Kanon's past story, including the reason why she chose to stop being an idol, and he hoped to get a chance to hear it someday. When Izumi squatted to take his drink that came out of the vending machine and stood back up, he noticed a familiar figure beside him. A young man with straight black hair. After thinking and looking at him for a moment, Izumi realized that the person beside him was Kobayashi, his classmate known as a playboy. Innocently, Izumi asked if Kobayashi dyed his hair, because he remembered Kobayashi's hair was previously blonde. Hearing that, the black-haired man looked a bit surprised, and with a calm tone answered that he was Kobayashi's younger brother. Hearing that, Izumi widened his eyes in surprise and reflexively let out a confused sound. On the other hand, Asahi, who was with Izumi, immediately asked Izumi if he didn't know about Kobayashi's twin at their school. Asahi explained that the older brother in their class was named Mitsuki Kobayashi, while the younger brother Itsuki Kobayashi was in another class. While laughing a bit, Asahi said that so it was normal for Izumi not to recognize Itsuki at a glance. Itsuki himself nodded with his flat expression, which was quite the opposite of his older brother, who looked very expressive. After a short conversation with Itsuki said goodbye to them to return to his class first. On the other hand, Izumi and Asahi were still there and watching Itsuki leave. With a still surprised tone, Izumi commented to Asahi that he just realized that Itsuki had a different aura. Hearing that comment, Asahi laughed a bit and also commented that according to him, when discussing twins like Itsuki and Mitsuki, he could say he felt a bit emotional and admired them. Hearing that, Izumi commented again that he was curious what it felt like to have a younger sibling with the same face as him. On the other hand, on a makeup table, there were various beauty tools. A brush for applying powder evenly on the face was seen being used by Kanon. Now her appearance was different from yesterday, although still looking charming, but her expression said otherwise. As if there was something making her feel lacking, she then muttered softly that she needed to become cuter. A statement to herself that felt very obsessive about her own beauty. Izumi's romantic and warm life continued. Now he spent more time at Kanon's apartment after school. When morning came, the two of them did their morning routines together. Izumi brushed his teeth while Kanon washed her face. Suddenly, Kanon commented while staring at her reflection in the mirror that the dark circles under her eyes looked quite noticeable. Hearing that comment, Izumi only let out a confused sound and thought to himself that he didn't understand what Kanon meant by that. Kanon continued her comment that she looked cute without those eye bags. Izumi paused and slightly furrowed his brow. He then replied to Kanon's comment by saying that in his opinion, Kanon always looked cute. For a moment, Kanon's expression looked blank, as if she felt nothing upon hearing Izumi's words, but she quickly changed her expression to a wide smile and soft laughter. She then approached and kissed Izumi's cheek while thanking him, before leaving the bathroom. Izumi just stood there silent with a confused gaze while watching Kanon leave. At school, during break time, suddenly Mitsuki approached Izumi's group, which consisted of the trio of close friends. He then asked them if the three of them had ever thought about getting plastic surgery, a question that came out of nowhere and off topic, making the three of them silent and confused. Keed answered first with a puzzled tone that he thought he wanted to look better, but not to the extent of getting plastic surgery. Hearing that, Mitsuki nodded and commented again that both he and the three of them already looked handsome naturally. Hearing that made Keed even more curious, and asked if Mitsuki planned to get plastic surgery. Mitsuki shook his head and answered with a firm but disappointed tone that he actually strongly opposed the idea, but not his younger brother. Izumi slightly furrowed his brow in confusion upon hearing the word younger brother from Mitsuki. After thinking for a moment, Izumi remembered the meeting with Itsuki a few days ago. Mitsuki told them that the two of them had a fight yesterday, where Itsuki, the younger brother, told Mitsuki, the older brother, that he wanted to get plastic surgery. Hearing that shocked Mitsuki greatly. He immediately opposed it and asked what was wrong with his current face. Itsuki, with his usual calm tone, answered that this matter had nothing to do with his brother, especially since it was his face, so it was up to him what to do. Itsuki even explained that their mother had already given permission for it, and he would use his savings from his part-time job to pay for the plastic surgery. Hearing that made Mitsuki a bit disappointed, because their mother's response seemed not too caring about them. Suddenly, Itsuki honestly said that all this time he hated his face. He had also saved quite a lot, so Mitsuki didn't need to interfere in his matter. Hearing his honesty made Mitsuki a bit shocked. In the end, the two of them fought and argued afterward. Hearing that story come from Mitsuki's mouth, who always looked cheerful and full of life passion, surprised Izumi quite a bit. Even Asahi felt disappointed and commented that now he realized having a sibling had a special relationship that they couldn't understand because they didn't have one. Hearing that comment, Mitsuki commented again that actually the relationship between him and his younger brother wasn't that close. It could even be said that he couldn't build a good relationship with his brother. Mitsuki let out a long sigh, showing his worry and heavy feelings. Then he said again that he and his brother always had the same face, so he felt heartbroken when his brother said he always hated his face. They all fell silent, and Izumi nodded in agreement with Mitsuki. Not long after, Sahara's voice appeared and joined their conversation. Without hesitation, he scolded his close friend by asking Mitsuki not to easily tell others about his family problems so casually. Hearing Sahara's voice surprised Mitsuki a bit. Sahara continued his words that Mitsuki and his brother might have similar faces, but from his point of view, he could see the differences. According to him, everyone has their own differences, so it's very complicated to deal with those differences. He then gave an example like how he understood well Mitsuki's feelings of loneliness or worry about his brother. But he also understood that Mitsuki was wrong in responding to his brother by not listening to his explanation first. Mitsuki just stayed silent and bowed his head like a child being advised by a parent. Seeing that made the trio of close friends silent in admiration. Even Izumi commented that Sahara was truly mature. After school, the trio of close friends went home together. On the way, they still discussed the plastic surgery that Mitsuki's brother would do. Asahi commented that he always thought plastic surgery was only done by people working in the entertainment industry, but hearing about it from people around him seemed surprising and unusual. Izumi also commented that he didn't get a good impression from it. Izumi then expressed his opinion that he didn't understand why people needed to improve their appearance so much, because in his opinion, what's most important is someone's inner self. Hearing that while laughing softly, Asahi commented on Izumi's opinion that according to him, it was all fine as long as plastic surgery made them look cute and their lives more enjoyable. Hearing that made Izumi slightly furrow his brow and comment back that in his opinion, that thought sounded too reckless for not considering the risks of the surgery. Asahi then asked again, wasn't Izumi fond of idols before? But Izumi didn't like them for their appearance. He also said that those idols were carefully made and shaped by the industry for entertainment and to be enjoyed by their fans, so their appearance was included in one package of many things, including plastic surgery. Hearing that, Izumi sighed and commented that this topic was starting to become troublesome. But when discussing love, in his opinion, it was better to face the other party without hiding one's true self. Upon arriving at the apartment elevator, Izumi opened his phone and watched a new video uploaded by Canon. He noticed that the duration of the video Canon uploaded was longer than before. He felt doubtful whether Canon's action was a good thing for the world to know how attractive Canon's voice was. When Izumi opened the comment section, he saw one comment saying that he was sure Canon's face was beautiful and he wanted to see her face. Remembering that all this time Canon uploaded her videos without showing her face at all, seeing that comment made Izumi feel that people watching Canon's videos could only see as much as what was displayed on their screens. Not knowing what she looked like or what kind of girl Canon was. A sense of pride emerged within him because only he knew everything about what the viewers didn't know about Canon, and without Izumi realizing it, that pride slowly turned into arrogance. Exiting the elevator, Izumi went to Canon's apartment as he had done before. He entered and intended to greet Canon in her room. But upon arriving at the room, Izumi was quite confused and surprised to find Canon asleep on her bed. That surprised him because it was unusual. He approached her and was about to call her. But suddenly, a man's voice was heard and interrupted Izumi's words, instantly making Izumi silent. The man casually came out of Canon's bathroom and told him that he would go home soon. When turning, Izumi made eye contact with the man in a situation that could cause misunderstanding, with a towel hanging around his neck. Yes, that man was none other than Yamato. The figure Canon had explained before was just someone she knew. Yamato innocently asked who Izumi was. Izumi stood there silent, with a very surprised expression upon realizing there was another man in Canon's apartment. One day, when Izumi was spending time in Canon's room, although a bit hesitant, Izumi then asked Canon to tell about her past. He wanted to know Canon more deeply, since he had already told about himself to Canon. He asked Kanon to tell about her family, or the reason Kanon stopped being an idol. Kanon paused for a moment while looking at Izumi, who was hugging her from behind, before smiling warmly and answering that she would tell Izumi everything about herself another time. Since then, Izumi always had one desire in his heart: to know about the figure he had always admired from the beginning, because he had always watched her even after Kanon stopped being an idol. And he also wanted to fill the gap left by Kanon after no longer being the old Kanon, and that way he would be the only person who could understand everything about Kanon. Yes, an excessive and obsessive thought from Izumi towards his idol. But now, Izumi had to face something that made him think wildly upon seeing another man in Kanon's apartment in a situation that caused misunderstanding. Izumi was silent when asked by Yamato who he was. Izumi tried to remember the name of the man in front of him. But as he was about to answer, Yamato casually put his things back into his bag and asked again if Izumi was Kanon's boyfriend. Izumi immediately nodded, confirming it, and with a confrontational tone towards Yamato. Izumi felt that he shouldn't lose his cool side in a situation like this. Izumi then confirmed that the person in front of him was Yamato. He also explained that he heard about Yamato from Kanon, and according to him, Yamato was like a brother to Kanon. Yamato seemed not too concerned, and only let out a questioning sound to continue Izumi's words while he was putting on his clothes. Izumi explained that in his opinion, Yamato and Kanon had a close relationship like a family, even daring to shower directly in Kanon's apartment. Hearing all that directly from Izumi's mouth, who admitted to being Kanon's boyfriend, Yamato smiled slightly and asked him with a friendly tone to not use an offensive tone. He also explained that all this wasn't what Izumi expected. He came to her apartment right after finishing work, and it was true he borrowed Kanon's bathroom. While putting on his necklace, Yamato explained again that if Izumi and Kanon really had a close enough relationship to talk about him, then that was better because Kanon was doing her old habits again, and now she was sick. Her mind was chaotic now, so he asked Izumi as her boyfriend to take care of Kanon's mental health from now on. Hearing that, Izumi was silent, his brow furrowed in surprise. He even innocently asked several things like Kanon's old habits and Kanon being sick. Seeing Izumi's innocence and his initial offensive behavior towards him made Yamato smile cynically. He asked with a slightly sarcastic tone, what was this? Was Izumi really Kanon's boyfriend? But why didn't he know about this? Yamato's question instantly annoyed Izumi, although he himself admitted it. Yamato explained that Kanon always made herself overdose on drugs when she was sick just to free herself from her thoughts. Yamato then asked Izumi if he knew about the cut scars on her arm. He explained that Kanon did it again this time. She was really crazy until she got exhausted and fell asleep. Hearing all that, Izumi could only stay silent with an unbelieving expression. He commented with a reluctant tone that Kanon never did things like that in front of him. Even Kanon herself told him that she no longer hurt herself. Hearing that, Yamato turned and felt pity for Izumi, who apparently wasn't told something this important by Kanon. He then commented that Izumi really wasn't someone considered important by Kanon to not be told that. Hearing that comment certainly made Izumi furious, but again his heart admitted all that. He also knew that the man in front of him now knew a lot about Kanon, compared to himself who knew nothing except what appeared in public. Because Izumi felt frustrated about it, he explained to Yamato that he and Kanon had just started their relationship and still had a very long way to go. Besides, the two of them felt a deeper connection than before. His tone changed from just informing to provoking. Izumi said that, but it was different with Yamato. Wasn't it very embarrassing for an adult Yamato's age to babble and show off everything he knew about Kanon in front of her boyfriend? Izumi then raised his tone to clarify his provocation by asking, or perhaps if Yamato had special feelings for Kanon. If that was true, then Yamato had a hidden intention to approach Kanon, acting like a protector, and in his opinion, that was very disgusting. Hearing that, Yamato just put on a flat expression, showing no emotion at all. But suddenly, Yamato approached Izumi and immediately pulled his uniform collar. His gaze was calm, but his tone was clearly angry. He asked why a kid like Izumi was trying to start a fight like this. He then commented that he admired Izumi, who confidently called himself the first person chosen by Kanon when Kanon herself hid many things from Izumi. Izumi was very young and naive. Yamato immediately released him while pushing him. He walked to the door and explained that Kanon came to him while crying, so he just did what he could. At this point, he should expect a thank you from Kanon's useless boyfriend instead of getting condemnation like earlier. He also gave advice to Izumi that if Izumi didn't want Kanon to depend on other men, then take care or treat her mental health properly. Yamato then turned while grinning and said that actually if Izumi felt he was great, why not dig into his own wallet to finance the plastic surgery Kanon wanted? Somehow maybe by borrowing money or doing part-time work to fulfill it. A topic that Izumi had just discussed at school, now mentioned again by Yamato and now involving Kanon in it. That shocked Izumi quite a bit. Remembering this topic also made the Kobayashi brothers fight. Before leaving, Yamato explained that Kanon's dysmorphophobia was destroying herself again. If Izumi succeeded in solving that problem, then other problems would be solved too. Dysmorphophobia itself is a fear of ugly appearance or fear of unattractive appearance. Hearing that, Izumi could only stay silent while watching Yamato leave Kanon's apartment. He stood there stunned, his mind thinking about what Yamato had just said. Looking around, in Kanon's room there were items scattered on the floor like dolls and some other papers. On the table, there were some medical tools like bandages, used cotton with red stains, and a first aid kit. He also turned towards Kanon, who was now sleeping soundly even after the debate between him and Yamato earlier. With a feeling of disappointment and hurt, Izumi sat on the floor near the bed. He muttered to himself, as if talking to Kanon. He said that Kanon didn't tell him about all that. The point of view shifted to Kanon. She dreamed of what she experienced in a staggering state due to overdose. Although her mind was floating, she could still clearly remember what she saw. On the table there was cotton with red stains and bandages. Kanon sitting on the bed, hearing Yamato's voice waiting beside her. His hand held Kanon's hand and asked her if she hadn't promised him to stop things like this. Yamato mocked Kanon as someone who couldn't keep her promises. He also warned Kanon that if she continued like this, she would never achieve happiness in her life no matter how much time passed. Yamato suddenly fell silent. He turned his gaze away. His gaze felt so distant, before he bowed his face and muttered softly that he could say the same to himself too. Time passed. Kanon slowly opened her eyes, feeling her consciousness returning. In her heart, she clearly remembered that she had broken her promise with Yamato again. In a half-drowsy state, she got up and tried to sit on the bed. But when turning to the side, she found Izumi asleep there in a sitting position on the floor. Seeing that, Kanon panicked and immediately woke Izumi. She was worried Izumi's body would hurt if he continued sleeping in that position. Feeling his body shaken, Izumi woke up and looked at Kanon. Seeing Izumi wake up, Kanon smiled awkwardly and asked Izumi to wake her up immediately if he intended to come to her apartment. Izumi was silent for a few moments before saying that he had many things he wanted to ask Kanon, so he asked to talk with Kanon now. After agreeing, they finally talked. The two of them sat on the bed. The atmosphere between them was no longer warm, but full of awkwardness. Izumi with a slightly hesitant tone told and explained what he talked about with Yamato when Kanon was fast asleep. He also asked the truth of what Yamato said. Hearing all that made Kanon silent 1,000 languages. Her face looked slightly pale and cold sweat appeared on her face. Because there was no answer, Izumi said again that the fact that Kanon still did her habit of hurting herself, or using drugs and even intending to get plastic surgery. He wanted to hear all that directly from Kanon. Kanon was still silent for a few moments before answering with a fearful tone that both making herself overdose and hurting herself was the first time she did it after knowing Izumi. Hearing that, Izumi was quite surprised. He then asked why Kanon did it this time, although Izumi already knew the answer that it was probably about the phobia Kanon experienced. Because Kanon was still silent, Izumi asked again, "What about the plastic surgery?" With a somewhat soft tone, Kanon answered that she hated the dark circles under her eyes, and she wanted her eyes to look more droopy to give a different soft impression. Hearing the words dark circles made Izumi remember Kanon's words when they were in the bathroom. Realizing that with a surprised and unbelieving tone, Izumi asked if Kanon hurt herself just to pursue that. That question made Kanon open her eyes wide. It was reasonable if Izumi said it like that, because it was a very deviant way to get the desired result. Even Izumi emphasized that to fix the dark eye bags under her eyes wasn't something that had to be done with plastic surgery, because Kanon just needed to take better care of her body to solve that problem. Because he felt Kanon's action was too excessive and clearly deviant, Izumi immediately emphasized that Kanon was already cute as she was, so she didn't need to change anything else. But Izumi's words were interrupted by Kanon, and she asked if Izumi had known her since she was an idol. Hearing that sudden question surprised Izumi a bit, and he nodded, confirming it. Kanon then smiled and said that at that point, when she was still an idol, she had undergone plastic surgery several times, and what Izumi saw then was the result. Izumi was stunned, not because he was blushing seeing Kanon smile now, but because now he felt mixed feelings towards Kanon. Kanon explained again with a strangely calm tone this time, that for a long time, she had changed her eyelids to double, a small change that felt determining everything for her. From there, one desire turned into a series of other desires. She changed the shape of her eyes, smoothed her face contours, then her nose and mouth followed. Even the fat in her body she removed, as if every detail was a mistake she had to fix. She said this wasn't entirely plastic surgery, but her protruding teeth she eventually removed. All that was done not because of one procedure alone, but because of an endless urge to approach the ideal figure that kept haunting her, a face that she thought was finally worthy to be accepted. She even smiled while saying that she really looked very different from before. Did Izumi realize that? Izumi with a surprised tone answered that he did realize it, but he thought it was because Kanon looked beautiful due to becoming more mature. Kanon laughed, but her laughter wasn't happy or joking, but darker and deeper. She then said if only becoming mature could make an ugly person become cute. Her words increasingly explained that Kanon really had an excessive obsession with her ideal self. Kanon's tone changed to an envious tone, but still smiling. She said that she knew Izumi had been living alone all this time, without needing to worry about his appearance. That was because Izumi was very lucky to have a naturally handsome face, and Izumi had a blessing in his genes. But not for her. People who always followed her started giving their opinions about her appearance. Even when she found people talking about her becoming ugly continuously, it was like every reflection in the mirror eroded little by little her reason to keep living. She also always had to maintain her weight and remove all useless fat, all that made her very frustrated. Especially when hearing conversations of people who never thought about what she thought, it made her even more frustrated. She was sure people like them would never understand what people like her felt throughout their lives. Hearing Kanon's words that increasingly felt off and showed her obsessive attitude made Izumi immediately emphasize again that Kanon already looked cute since she was an idol. But Izumi's words were immediately denied by Kanon by asking him to stop saying it while shouting. Her face became pale and her hands reflexively approached her face. With a trembling tone like being scared, she asked in panic, which part looked cute. She was used to being very ugly, or maybe Izumi liked ugly girls. Nothing good happened during her time as an idol in the past. Her life felt like something she slowly wanted to erase from her own consciousness. Izumi was really shocked upon hearing Kanon's true worry. Fortunately, Izumi remained strong. He calmly said to Kanon again that even so, he liked the smile Kanon always used in the past. Those calm words felt soft but also sharp for Kanon, like sprinkling salt on her wound that never dried. Kanon's eyes opened wide before squinting them with tears starting to well up. She covered her face with both hands and with a sobbing voice, she said that she hated her own face. Whether her face, inside her, even who she really was, everything felt wrong in her eyes. Even she was sure if Izumi knew what happened, Izumi would hate her to the point Izumi regretted asking. With a trembling tone and breaking sobs, Kanon said that she would destroy the beautiful memories with Izumi that she had. Hearing how messed up Kanon's mental state was, how fragile she was, Izumi without hesitation immediately held Kanon's hand tightly. With a firm but warm tone, he said that he didn't mind it, because in his opinion, it was better for him to know everything than not knowing everything. Hearing his words, like a light shining brightly in the midst of her dark heart. Slowly, her sobs subsided. Her trembling hands slowly calmed. She was silent for a moment before starting to tell her past to Izumi, where she became an idol when she was 12 years old, and life at that time for her was already like hell. In the past, when Kanon was 12 years old, she was congratulated by her own mother and told that Kanon would become an idol. But upon hearing that, little Kanon didn't look happy at all. She just stayed silent because she was surprised. After passing the audition period, several contestants were selected, including Kanon, who would become idols at an agency. They were gathered in a practice room with large mirrors almost installed on every wall. The dance trainer announced that all of them called to this room had been chosen to debut a song, and starting tomorrow their training would begin. He also explained that they all would get dance and singing training. Therefore, he asked them all to do their best in their training. Right beside Kanon, a girl with shoulder-length blonde hair whispered to the friend beside her. She asked if Kanon was the girl who participated in this audition. The long blonde-haired girl nodded and said that she heard rumors that Kanon could pass the audition because of her parents' connections, and Kanon's mother was a former singer. But now Kanon's mother became a vocal trainer at an agency. Hearing that, the shoulder-length blonde girl grinned and let out a mocking sound. The girl even mocked Kanon's appearance, which according to her looked ordinary and even ugly. Whether intentional or not, Kanon could certainly hear their words. But she always put on a flat expression as if not caring. Deep in her heart, Kanon herself honestly wasn't interested at all in becoming an idol. After practice, Kanon told her mother what she experienced. Her mother, who looked charming like an artist, gently answered that Kanon was blessed with a beautiful face, and she was sure the people who said bad things about Kanon were just jealous. She then explained while smiling that as Kanon knew, she stopped being a singer because she had to give birth to Kanon. Therefore, she had high hopes for Kanon to complete the dream she never achieved. Especially since Kanon had a singing voice like hers, so according to her, everything would be fine. A wrong statement from a parent who imposed her dream on her child. But even so, Kanon herself couldn't express her desire directly to her mother. Her mother then held both her cheeks and commented that Kanon was actually a pity because her face looked more like her father's than hers. Therefore, when Kanon was mature enough, she invited Kanon to change her face through plastic surgery. Not only that, Kanon's mother also indoctrinated her daughter by saying that things like plastic surgery were normal, especially to change the face. Her mother then hugged Kanon while happily saying that the two of them had many fun things waiting for them in the future. That was also one of the reasons why Kanon found it hard to express her desire, because she could see her mother feeling very happy when she became an idol. Because the situation was like that, Kanon had no other choice but to practice very diligently both in dance and singing. That way, she hoped people would stop thinking she got in because of insiders. Besides, Kanon also felt now she could smile better and show expressions than before. But as time went by, such taunts never stopped. They even got worse. Now not only from her team members, now Kanon got mockery from the fans of her team. Really only Kanon alone was ostracized by their team fans. Even so, Kanon didn't care too much. What she cared about was as long as her mother could be happy because she became an idol, she already felt enough. But the reality was different. When at home, a magazine covered their idols where Kanon's team was also there. The mother looked annoyed. She showed the team photo in the magazine and asked why Kanon was in the back row. Kanon, with a fearful tone and holding back tears with bruised cheeks from the slap, answered that their positions were determined from the beginning, so she had no other choice. Hearing that, the mother got even angrier. She immediately snapped at Kanon and asked again if Kanon didn't feel frustrated losing to ordinary girls who only had advantages in their pretty faces and attractiveness. Kanon tried to defend herself and explained that she had decided to have advantages in her singing and kept practicing it. That made the mother even more furious and snapped at her again while asking the same thing to Kanon as before, if Kanon didn't feel frustrated losing to her own team members. Little Kanon could only cry and keep apologizing to her mother, who kept snapping at her harshly. Seeing her daughter cry while apologizing, the mother lowered her tone and said that Kanon should feel that frustration. She then hugged Kanon and said that Kanon was beautiful, but instead of apologizing for her actions, the mother regretted slapping Kanon's face, who was an idol. She also reasoned that she did all that so Kanon knew how the frustration she felt for Kanon. An unhealthy relationship was already shown by the mother to Kanon since then. That day was also the day she met Yamato. When she was about to buy a drink from the vending machine, she met Yamato there. Seeing Kanon, Yamato looked happy and recognized Kanon. He greeted Kanon and explained that he had often gotten singing lessons from Kanon's mother, and according to him, both her mother and daughter looked amazing in Yamato's eyes. He also said his hope where he hoped to debut soon too. Hearing that with a pessimistic tone, Kanon said that there wouldn't be anything good even if Yamato debuted. Hearing that, Yamato certainly felt confused, and Kanon, who was heartbroken at that time, started crying there while suddenly saying that she wanted to stop being an idol. Hearing that certainly shocked Yamato greatly because the figure he admired suddenly said pessimistic things like that. In the end, Kanon vented her frustrations to Yamato while sitting on a chair near the vending machine. After listening to all her complaints, Kanon felt better than before. Yamato now understood the problem Kanon was facing. He then commented that even so, he felt quite envious of Kanon's mother who supported Kanon so greatly. Kanon was a bit confused by what Yamato meant. Yamato explained while smiling that both his parents viewed jobs in the entertainment industry as useless and even opposed his decision now. From his current position, he felt envious because Kanon was fully supported by her parents and had already debuted. Hearing that, Kanon just stayed silent. She felt conflicted about what she should do now. Seeing that doubt, Yamato asked if Kanon hated her own mother. Kanon shook her head and answered that she loved her mother. Although her mother looked scary when angry, but she knew her mother was angry for her own good. Yamato smiled broadly and said that if Kanon felt too heavy to carry the burden alone, then Kanon could come to him to pour out her heart anytime. He also suggested Kanon do what she could for now. He then extended his hand and placed it on Kanon's head while starting to stroke it gently. Yamato said with a happy and confident tone that he would debut too, and when that time came, he would invite Kanon to collaborate in a music program together. Kanon's face turned a bit red, and while covering part of her face using her jacket sleeve, Kanon nodded, accepting Yamato's offer. At that time, Kanon felt her feelings towards Yamato weren't love, but admiration as an older brother standing on the same side as her. And that alone was enough to make her endure the difficult times for her, even if Yamato's admiration for her was based on her mother. But at least there was someone who could understand her situation. That was more than enough. One day, the mother commented to Kanon that Kanon now started dancing better. Hearing that praise made Kanon smile happily, and happily she told her mother that her dance trainer also praised her dance. The mother then smiled and praised her daughter again by saying that she always believed in Kanon, that Kanon could do it. Even so, the praise felt like confining, like something slowly forming an invisible boundary around her. But for innocent little Kanon, she considered it as a normal praise from a mother, and the beginning of the problem started. Her mother, with a soft tone, tried to indoctrinate her daughter by saying that Kanon shouldn't be satisfied just with that achievement, because now was the time for them to proceed to the next stage. She explained that in the entertainment world, people who aimed to be number one were those who would use any means to achieve that position. A very deviant thought just to make her long unachievable dream come true, even sacrificing her own daughter. But for innocent little Kanon, she only thought as long as her mother was happy, she would follow. Therefore, she innocently answered that her mother would always support her, so she would do her best to meet her mother's expectations. Her mother smiled happily because her daughter was walking according to her wishes. Worse, her mother even said that things like this were normal for others to do. She then used words more like a mantra to confine her daughter's thoughts, namely, "I have high hopes for you." When night came, then her mother's intention became clear. In a dark room with minimal lighting, Kanon stood stiffly. Her face pale, cold sweat pouring from her skin, her body trembling, not shivering but because of fear that made her unable to move at all. On the other hand, a man sat there and said with a casual tone that Kanon was a good girl to listen to whatever her mother said. His words sounded light, but for Kanon, everything felt scary and hard to understand.